guys, welcome back to Strong Successful Male. So for today, I'm going to be doing part 11 of the story about the three husbands that are joining forces against their cheater wives that were doing it all on girls' nights. And where things left off in the other part that you guys saw a couple hours ago, it was about two of the gals in that group apparently having a secret relationship with each other. I was just getting into the dirty part about the whole thing, and I left it off with that cliffhanger, which I know you all love so much. So I'm going to jump right back into where things left off. It says here, did Jesse and Debbie meet during the week for hookups? Jesse told Fran they did not. Both were seeing men during the week. Jesse talked about her dates, and Debbie texted pictures and details about their hookups. But Jesse and Fran saw each other only when Debbie showed up on the Friday nights. I told Fran, besides Fridays, Debbie was cheating on Sid evenings and Saturdays. She told Sid she had to work overtime to finish up some BS work project, but she was really out hooking up. Sid found out about Debbie never worked late or on Saturdays. Fran said she knew that. Debbie was working full-time and had a husband and 3 kids. Debbie also had a boyfriend. And she was seeing other men as well. So a husband, multiple boyfriends, and this girl. Fran was curious that Debbie managed all that, so she finally asked her. Debbie explained to Fran that she told Sid she had to work late sometimes and on some Saturdays to finish projects. Debbie used that time for fun. Debbie asked Fran not to tell any of the other wives about her overtime lie. Debbie was afraid someone might slip and it would get back to her husband. So, Debbie takes carousel riding to a whole new level here. God almighty. Fran told me that Liv, Debbie's sister, probably knows about the BS Debbie told Sid about working overtime. But Jesse, Debbie, Desi, what the fuck? But Jesse didn't. Fran, Liv, and Jesse had to cover for each other. Debbie didn't need the other wives to cover for her. Other than to have Liv confirm that she was at Liv's Friday if anyone ever asked. So Fran, Liv, and Jesse didn't talk much about it. Or about Debbie's coming and goings. Their lies tied 3 wives together. Fran, Liv, and Jesse had to be on the same page. But Debbie did her own thing. That's why it didn't occur to Jesse or Liv to bring up Debbie when they told the husbands about when the wives were really doing on girls' nights. Also, Liv probably didn't want to rat out her sister. Jesse probably did not want Steve to know about her female lover, at least not to that point. Fran and Liv knew that Debbie and Jesse were having sex. Fran thinks Debbie didn't tell Jesse she was available during some weeknights and some Saturdays because Debbie only wanted to see Jesse on the random Fridays. Fran always thought that Jesse was more into Debbie and that Debbie was into Jesse. Jesse was just Debbie's occasional Friday night fun girl. Or Friday night girl fun. I said so they were all constantly unfaithful, not just on girls' nights or when the opportunity arose. They all aggressively sought out men. Fran said she was with Bob's big boy, no other men. The others wanted to see how far they could push it without their husbands getting suspicious. They all pushed it pretty far. Yeah, I do think they took it and pushed it pretty far. The other wives with a lot of men, but they all did outrageous things too. Fran said, I knew that Bob came to our house for sex. I saw that on her phone. That was another competition among the wives. sex with another man in the bed they share with their husbands. Liv didn't even bother to change the sheets afterwards. She told James she was eating yogurt in bed and spilled some. They all got a laugh out of that. That's freaking disgusting. That is just insult to a whole lot of injury there. Yogurt, God almighty. The last competition among Liv, Jesse, and Fran was they get their husbands to agree to an open marriage. They discussed endlessly about the best way to approach each husband and made predictions about which husbands would go for it and which would not. If any of the 3 husbands went for it, they would use this agreement to get any stubborn husbands to open his marriage too. That's why Fran lied and told me that James and Liv were in an open marriage. I would agree to go along with it because it's okay if my buddy James would. It would be okay with me. I wouldn't find out if it wasn't true about James until I was already pulled in. Then they'd tell James I was on board with the open marriage. That would get James to agree. And then they would tell Steve he's the only holdout. An open marriage would open the floodgates to even more fun and excitement. Getting the husbands to agree to open marriage was just the first step to a world of delight for our wives. And again, people wonder why so many men are not getting married nowadays, or even in relationships anymore. Not so much for the husbands. Even if any of the wives allowed their husbands to date, and none of them would, the husbands would be too busy at home with the kids. Someone had to watch the kids, and it wouldn't be the wives. Open marriages are never really open for the husbands. The wives are with the lovers. Well, naturally, the women bring this up knowing darn well that a typical gal who's remotely attractive can have a line a mile long of dudes that want to nail her, but even a good-looking guy, it's not going to be easy to get girls to just, the way a not bad-looking girl could. And we all know that's true, and they know this. Open marriages are never really open for the husbands. The wives are with their lovers, the husbands are with the kids waiting for their wives to come home. Or the husband is trying to find some gal crazy enough to go out with a married man with kids who claims he has an open marriage. A guy who hasn't dated in years, and shortly after agreeing to an open marriage, the husband would realize that it's only open for his wife, and too late. That's how all these stories go. For you guys that watched so many of my stories here on this channel, or on the They Did What channel especially, that's how these open marriages usually go when the husbands agree to it. And the wives know it. What does Fran mean about the floodgates opening? Fran was very excited explaining what the wives had planned for their husbands. Once they had their open marriages, the wives' competitions will revolve around getting the husbands comfortable with their wives being with other men. Make it seem normal, natural, and routine. The wives going out and banging other men was now a feature of their marriage. The more accepting the husbands were of the fact, the more the wives could get away with. How to get the husbands to see there was nothing wrong with their wives effing other men. Apparently, get the husbands to help the wives with their hookups. Involve the husband in the wife's adventures with other men. I told Fran to explain that to me. See, it's crazy to me that she is actually telling you all this shit, unless she's thinking that this is the only way to get in your good graces and not divorce her, or get better terms of the divorce, or something here. Or she's drunk, or I don't know what. She said they would start by the wife asking her husband his opinion about what to wear when she's dressing for a date. Which dress does the husband think would be the most pleasing to her lover? Talk about emasculating, huh? But ask like it's no big deal, like she's going to work instead to screw another guy. All ordinary, all normal. Then tell the husband to take her shopping to help her pick out a special lingerie for a date. Ask the husband if he thinks her lover will be more turned on by these or those panties. This or that bra. Involve the husband. Get him thinking about the wife's lover. In other words, treating him like a cuck. When the date comes to pick her up, have him come to meet the husband. Be very affectionate with the guy in front of the husband. Make it clear that this is her husband's life now. After dates, discuss all the details of her hookups with the husband. How twisted is this? But again, they think their husbands are such losers, they're going to go along with this. They were wrong. Praise her lover's skill in packaging compared to her husband's. Act like comparing her lover to her husband is commonplace, like she's comparing restaurants. The husband has to get used to thinking about this, what his wife is doing with other men, and be okay with it. When the time is right, let him see what she's doing with other men. Insist that her husband join her in a three-way with another man, and on and on and on. The possibilities were limitless. Yeah, and they all got off on this. If this is true. Throughout all of this, make sure the husband is always greatly rewarded for his acceptance of the new lifestyle. Maybe play with him when she describes a night with her lover. Have him connect the pleasure she's giving him now with the pleasure she had last night. More important, make sure that any irritation the husband displays by his wife's activities is severely punished. Make his life hell if he shows any resistance to their new life. Break him in early on. Don't let any discontent fester or grow. If she does it right, the husband will become completely complacent and accepting of his wife's lovers, even looking forward to the reward he'll get if he's a good boy. Did they get trained by a bunch of man-hating feminists for this? Once their marriages were open, the husbands would become their wives' enablers. The wife would get the husband to believe her having lovers was the only thing holding the marriage together. The wives understood none of this would happen overnight. It would take time, but the possibilities were unlimited and thrilling. Keyword thrilling. And inevitable once the husbands agreed to the open marriage. These chicks are evil, and every story makes it even worse. I told Fran that she was sick in the head to even think that I would put up with any of that shit. To want to humiliate their husbands, men they claim to love, she described as pure evil. I agree with that. Fran said they did a lot of research in open marriages. She's just describing how open marriages work. Getting husbands comfortable with their wives being with other men is part of it. Even after husbands agree to an open marriage, the wife has to keep pressuring, talking about her lovers, and describing her hookups, until the husband fully understands he's just another of the many men in his wife's life. Lots of men agree to live their lives like that. Yeah, weak-ass bitch men. Worn-down men. Men that don't have good role models or any self-esteem or self-worth. And going back to what I say all along is, guys, is that women don't respect weak men. So when you let them get with BS, you don't check them, you don't stand up for yourself, many will punish you. I mean, that's why women chase a-holes, because a-holes don't put up with crap. And they may think he's an a-hole, but they at least respect him. And they chase after that guy and his alpha, strong, masculine energy. Right here. Fran told me all this plan to open their marriages and talk about the fun they would have taming their husband turned out to be pure fantasy. The result of Fran asking me for an open marriage was all the marriages fell apart. The Y's last competition was a complete failure. Yep, Fran should have realized. She misjudged me. Forgive her. No way. Yeah, I'm going to forgive you after all that. I'd be like, my level of disdain for you has gone to a whole new level after you admitting to that. To any husband whose wife has asked for an open marriage, what Fran described is exactly what your life will be like. It's only open for your wife. Other men are more important to your wife than you are. That's why she wants to open the marriage. You won't enjoy your open marriage the rest of much of your life, but your wife certainly will. I've been saying that since I started this channel, and yet people still do this. Back to the Y's. Fran continued after New Year's. Both Jesse and Debbie realized their marriages were over. No shit. No hope of reviving them. Since they no longer had husbands, Jesse and Debbie began bar hopping again to find some new sucker to take care of them. Sid still had Debbie's kids at this point. Jesse was still living with Hector. I asked if Fran was out with him too. Fran said she was at home in her apartment, remaining completely faithful to me. Sure. Yeah, sure. Sid found out his kids weren't his and gave them to Debbie the Friday after New Year's. Jesse spent that weekend with Debbie, helping with children and consoling Debbie. After having SEX, continuing to live with Hector became a problem, so Jesse moved in with Debbie that Sunday. No more husbands, no need to hide anything. Debbie and Jesse were in love. Yeah, like these two are capable of love. Fran said Jesse instead that Debbie break it off with her long-term lover. Debbie said she had. Did Fran think that they were planning to remain monogamous? Just the two of them and no one else. Fran said that's what Jesse told her. No more bar hopping, no more men, just the two of them together and Debbie's kids. Well, somebody's about to be cheated on. There's going to be some karma for one of these gals. I asked Fran what she thought the chances were of the two of them remaining faithful to each other. Fran laughed and said 0 to none. They both like sausage too much. They'll eventually have to open the relationship or pick up guys and do them together. Debbie will be back seeing her boyfriend. Maybe Debbie will end up sharing him with Jesse. They'll both be back to bar hopping as soon as they can figure out what to do with Debbie's kids. I suggested since Fran is at home and not going out, maybe Fran can babysit Debbie's kids. Fran blushed but didn't say anything. When it's time for the girls to go bar hopping, I don't think Fran will be available to babysit. I asked Fran why Sid or Steve found nothing on their wives' phones about their wives' relationships. Fran said they all received and sent sausage pictures, lewd pictures, and texted each other about other guys. All the husbands found the stuff on their wives' phone. But Jesse and Debbie were not going to take obscene pictures of each other to send to the other wives, nor were they going to detail their hookups like they did with the guys. Evidently, there was nothing on either of their phones that exposed their relationship. How interesting. I asked where Debbie and Jesse were living. Debbie and Liv's parents have a winter home in Florida. Oh great, they're here in my state now. They left for their winter home right after Christmas and won't return until late spring. Jesse, here we go again. Jesse moved in with Debbie and her kids at Debbie's parents. What about Liv, I asked. Fran and Liv got an apartment together, but Fran told me that Liv was there a short while ago. Right before New Year's, Liv found someone who she thought could be James's replacement. Of course. He's a wealthy older man. Liv went to live with him. Fran met him when they came to get some of Liv's stuff. He seems okay. Fran rarely sees or hears from Liv. Liv's been too busy with her new guy. No, Liv's wealthy older man is not Hector. Hey, you never know. Another poor dumb sucker who will soon become a fan of the channel. That's where the second week of January and Jesse and Debbie are together. Liv with a guy who she hoped will replace James. Fran still threatening to take custody of my kids to get money, or to get me to take her back. My guess is that Fran is still seeing Bob's big boy and the detective when she is in bar hopping and picking up new guys. Once again, that was last week. Stable relationships are a thing of the past with our wives. Whatever stability our wives had in their adult lives was provided by their husbands and their marriages. Their husbands and their marriages are gone. Serious, stable, long-lasting relationships are a thing of the past for these gals. It's one drama after another. That's what they want, and that's what they got. Of course, they all love drama in varying degrees. Jesse moved in with Debbie following her argument with Hector on Sunday the 7th. Fran told me Jesse called her later that week. She was babysitting Debbie's 3 kids and was bored. Fran asked where Debbie was. Jesse said she had to work late. Debbie had to work that night, probably the following night, and also maybe on Saturdays. That's what she was saying to Sid, so she's already out with some other dude cheating on her. Every so often, Jesse explained, Debbie has to work late on some weeknights and Saturdays to finish projects that are due. Jesse just got the kids to bed and is bored stiff waiting for Debbie to come home. What was Fran doing? Did she want to come over and hang out? Fran said she'd be at Jesse's shortly. Fran told me she didn't know what to do. Debbie never worked late or on Saturdays. It was just something she told Sid to get off the hook, get to do the hookups. Now she's using the same excuse with Jesse. That's karma, Jesse. Should she tell Jesse that Debbie probably wasn't working? On the drive over, Fran decided that Jesse was her friend, Debbie was an acquaintance. Fran will have Jesse find out if Debbie is really working. When Fran arrived at Jesse's, she told Jesse that Debbie also told Sid that she was working on evenings and Saturdays. But Sid found out Debbie would never work late or on Saturdays. It was always an excuse to cover up her hookups. Jesse should call Debbie and see where she really is. Jesse told Fran that was not true. Debbie was unfaithful to Sid because she didn't love him. Debbie and Jesse were in love. What an idiot. They were a family now. Like, all in a couple weeks. Debbie would never cheat on Jesse. Fran said just call Debbie and see where she is. Debbie said Jesse should only call her at work if there's an emergency. Fran told Jesse there's an emergency. Call Debbie. And Jesse did. No answer on Debbie's cell and no answer when she called Debbie's direct line at work. Did Jesse know where Debbie's boyfriend lived? No. Did Jesse know where Debbie worked? Yes. She dropped Debbie off and picked her up at work a few times. It was about 9 p.m. The kids were tucked away and Debbie had not called Jesse back. Instead of bundling the kids up and putting them in the car, Fran suggested Jesse go by Debbie's job and surprise her. Fran will stay with the kids. Jesse put her coat on and got the keys and left. Now Fran gets her excitement and kicks from the drama she gets to observe. Jesse returned 45 minutes later. There were no lights on at Debbie's office building. Shocker. This was like part 9, I think, of Sid's story. No one was working. She tried Debbie again, but Debbie did not answer her phone. Jesse was more upset than Fran had ever seen her, raging at Debbie and then breaking down to hysterical tears. How could Debbie do this to her? Fran asked Jesse if she wanted Fran to wait for her and for Debbie to return. Jesse did. Oh, boo-hoo. Let's think of all the hurt and pain you put Steve through, lady. Debbie returned a little before midnight. Anybody smell a cat fight a brewing? All smiles, happy to see Fran. She went to Jesse to kiss her hello. Jesse held her off and asked where she's been. Debbie, taken aback, said Jesse knows she's been working. Why didn't Debbie answer Jesse's calls? Debbie said that she saw that Jesse called, but she was in meetings and couldn't talk. It was late when she left work, and she was afraid of waking Jesse if she called from the car. Jesse didn't leave any messages, so she thought it could wait until Debbie got home. What's up? Why did Jesse call? Is everybody okay? Jesse ignored her and asked where Debbie was working. Debbie turned pale, but she said she was in her office. Why all these questions? Why was Jesse interrogating her? Surely Jesse didn't think she was lying about where she was. She loved Jesse and would never lie to her. Fran said Jesse and Debbie were standing about 2 feet away from each other. Fran was sitting in a chair watching. Jesse reached out and touched Debbie's hair. Then Jesse punched Debbie as hard as she could in the face. Jesse knocked Debbie down and jumped on her. Fran said they were rolling around the floor, punching, slapping, and pulling each other's hair. Love a good cat fight. Debbie was bleeding badly from her nose. Fran was not about to jump in to separate them, but was yelling at Jesse to stop. As amusing as this is, and if this is true, there's little kids in the other part of the apartment that are going to be woken up to this madness. And then next thing you know, the cops are probably going to come. Eventually, Jesse got too tired to continue. Debbie was lying on the floor and Jesse was sitting next to her. Both were breathing hard. Fran helped Jesse up and told her to go pack. She can stay at Fran's. Jesse kicked Debbie in her side. Jesse went to pack while Fran attended to Debbie. Fran got her up and sitting in the chair. Debbie asked Fran, "You told her I don't work overtime, didn't you?" Fran nodded, and Debbie said, "You bitch. You ruined everything." Fran said she was waiting patiently for Jesse to finish packing. You're the one cheating, lady. When Jesse returned with a suitcase, she started toward Debbie again. Fran got between them. Debbie told Jesse that she loves her. She made a mistake. It meant nothing. That they can get past this. Give Debbie a chance to explain. She'll never do it again. Please don't leave. Jesse didn't answer Debbie. So this is the hoe bag handbook for hoes. Fran and Jesse left. When they got outside, Fran asked Jesse why they didn't let Debbie at least try to explain. Jesse said that Debbie's hair was damp from a shower. Jesse needed no other explanation. Jesse moved in with Fran that night. I asked Fran what was going to happen between Debbie and Jesse. Fran said Debbie thought she could get Jesse to replace Sid as her babysitter. Jesse would watch her kids while Debbie was out having fun. Jesse says Debbie doesn't love anyone but herself. Jesse is at Fran's heartbroken. Debbie is stuck with the 3 kids who are a serious impediment to her love life. Jesse and Debbie didn't last a week together. Shocker. Liv's relationship with the wealthy older gentleman she's been living with also came to an end. Liv told Fran that the guy was very kinky. He wanted to do stuff that was way too extreme even for Liv. Liv, of course, had done some of what the guy wanted to do, but their SEX life was just getting creepier and creepier. Way too weird for Liv. And it wasn't worth it. So she left him. Liv is 0 for 3 with her lovers. I want to point out that Liv is no longer in her prime anymore, so it's not going to be as easy for her. This one didn't last as long as her time with the guy in the Midwest. Liv is living with Debbie at their parents' house. No room at their apartment now that Jesse is living with Fran. Liv told Fran she's so sorry that James ever found out about her cheating. Remind her to punch Jesse again when she sees her. It's all Jesse's fault that they all had to give up their good lives that they had. Fran told me she tried to correct Liv about the facts. When James confronted Liv about her cheating, she admitted it and told him she wanted a divorce. Liv said that's the true, but at that point, James and I thought Liv and Fran just had boyfriends. All Fran and Liv had to do was tell her husbands that they broke up with their boyfriends, loved their husbands, and would be faithful from them from now on. That they were so sorry, it won't happen again, whatever. It would have been a difficult few weeks, but their husbands would have taken them back. By now, 2 months later, it would be like it never happened. They'd be back to their old marriage, maybe by now, even going out on girls' nights again. The husbands only knew the extent of what they were up to because Jesse told them. Fran, Liv, and Jesse would all be back with their loving husbands if Jesse had just kept her mouth shut. Well, Jesse's the one with a picture of her with the you-know-what in her mouth. She cannot keep her mouth shut. Liv said she guessed it was too much to ask the Queen of BJ's to keep her mouth shut. I told Fran Liv is delusional. We knew that they were doing what they were doing after I looked at Fran's phone and Steve looked at Jesse's. None of us would have taken their wives back even if Jesse had told us nothing. Maybe if Jesse hadn't talked about Debbie joining them on occasional girls' nights, we would not have found out about Debbie and Sid. And Debbie told Sid. We found out about Debbie when Jesse tried to explain to Liv her night at the men's room with Mr. BJ. I've been wondering about that conversation ever since I heard about Debbie and Jesse hooking up. Jesse did not have to mention Debbie, at least by name. Jesse then told Steve that Debbie was someone Liv knew. So Debbie wasn't someone Jesse just met that night. Steve understood that Debbie was someone the wives knew and hung out with. Then Jesse quickly got off the phone with Steve. Jesse didn't want anyone to think she was the one who outed Debbie. Jesse just provided the clues for us to find out about Debbie. She knew we would follow those clues. God Almighty. Jesse told us about Debbie because Jesse wanted Debbie for herself. Not possible if Debbie and Sid were still together. If Jesse could break up Debbie's marriage, Debbie would fall into Jesse's loving arms. And she did break up the marriage by telling us about Debbie. Jesse didn't realize she would never have Debbie for herself. None of these gals would ever be faithful to anyone. No shit. Debbie couldn't be faithful to Jesse for a week. Cheating wives even cheat on each other. Yes, that's the nature of the beast. So, that's where we are at the beginning of the 3rd week of January. Sid, Steve, James, and I are divorcing our wives. Nothing will stop that. I have custody of my kids, and James has his kids. Sid seems better today. We will all continue to have our ups and downs. We will keep attending our support sessions 3 days a week. Our support sessions, your videos, and your commentary, and the comments from your viewers keep us strong. We're on our way for a better future. Well, there you go, my man. Take it one day at a time. Our wives will continue to fall in and out of relationships. Their relationships will continue to be erratic, and their lives filled with drama. But drama, excitement, and attention is what they crave. That, money from their husbands, and hookups will be rid of them. Well, the sooner the better. So that, guys, is the end of part 11. And I'm sure that we'll be hearing about part 12 and 13 and so on in the coming weeks. So, guys, great story. I mean, this is horrible, but at least you're making something of this and you're sharing this for guys to be aware of with the whole girls' nights, open marriages, and all that. But anyhow, this is definitely the craziest story I've ever covered in the story. And it's like, when I get that email, it's like, oh boy, here we go. But anyway, guys, one day at a time and get through this, get through the divorces and move on and send these harpies back to hell. Alright guys, that is it for today. Be sure to comment down below. Let me know what you think about this. And be sure to like the video, share with your friends, and subscribe. I'll catch you next time.